There is a challenge that is coming from digital currencies such as blockchain technologies.
So I think it's important to share that anything can be tokenized.
All the money.
I like the idea of a gold standard. I mean, it could be used in a very cryptocurrency way.
Very much sooner than a lot of people understand or think. We will be all at a level playing field.
Hey, welcome to the show. I have not really a guest, my teammate with me, Scott Minett. He's the president of Valhil Capital. It's nice to see you, Scott. How's it going?
I'm doing well, Molly. Thank you for having me.
And we're going to talk about things related to commodities today. That's obviously something you have a long history with. And we are on the verge, it feels like we're on the verge of watching the world shift how it kind of handles commodities. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think big, giant shifts are happening right now.
So before we get into kind of what we think is going to happen in the future, let's catch everybody up on your story, specifically your background regarding commodities and trading.
Yeah, I mean, I got into commodities pretty early on. It was just something that I naturally, gravitated towards growing up in Houston. One of my best friend's dads growing up had traded commodities around the world. He made a lot of money. I thought that was really interesting. As I kind of progressed and I went to college, I studied international trade and finance. And then I went and did some internships in New York while I was in college, working for ship owners and commodity traders, and really just started developing a passion for, how things move from one part of the world to the other part of the world, and, how this globalized economies worked well together.
Okay.
That just kind of progressed until when I graduated. I asked one of my bosses from New York, where should I be? What should I do? And he was like, New Orleans is where it's at. You need to kind of get a ground level operational side of things. So right out of college, I started working for a shipping and logistics company where we mainly handled chartering vessels and barging and trucks. And I really got a good hands-on feel for every aspect of commodity trading. And then I just kind of followed that and took the next step and actually started trading myself. And then I went to Dubai in around 2010, 2011, and opened up a little firm over there where we represented Coke Industries for about 10 years, marketing their products in the MENA region. Got exposed to a lot of really cool people, and that's, I think, what changed things for me. I was really able to see from that perspective how global trade worked, the politics behind it, and that's kind of where I stepped into the finance world and was able to see kind of how the banking system really runs how commodities move.
Now, what specific commodities do you have experience with?
On the logistics side, we did everything. Bag cargoes, bulk cargoes, break bulk cargoes. I mean, everything. Oilfield equipment was kind of my specialty for a while. But when I went to Dubai, we mainly focused on oil and natural gas.
Okay.
What I led over there was building up an LNG trading program. So yeah, we spent a lot of years developing that, and petroleum coke, and then we did some renewable projects for Coke Industries where they were wanting to go into the cement plants, whether it was in Ras Al Khaimah or Pakistan, some of those emerging markets where they were trying to get in there and grab a foothold. So we really helped them with those local relationships and kind of putting all the paperwork together.
So I just read the book World for Sale, and I'm curious
Great
if
book.
your experience in that world was like that book.
Mine was not. Mine was not, but that really is how a lot of it's done. That's what attracted me to commodity trading was that. That idea that you could go in to a foreign country, kind of this untapped potential, strike deals with people, kind of a little Wild West, feel to the whole thing, but that's what's exciting about it. What I really like doing was new deals, figuring out, when there wasn't a deal structure around, how could we go in, how could we create something that was a win-win for everybody, and start a new game. So that's really what I enjoy doing.
A couple of key takeaways from World for Sale that I want to talk about. One is back in the sort of 80s and 90s, when those sort of Glencores of the world were like raking it in, there was no internet really. So this idea of real-time data didn't exist. So if you had access to industry data, you had a significant advantage. And the world also moved more slowly. So like arbitrage was a little bit easier because you go to one place and get it for one price and, sell it to another one. So I'm just kind of curious how you think that era can't happen anymore because of modern technology. What do you think is going to be remarkably different moving forward because we have tools like the blockchain and the internet?
100%. So that was like what I really learned in Dubai was these mega, international firms controlled everything. And, but we also lived in a world now with internet where you could see the price in London. The same guy, in West Africa and Lagos could see the price of gold in London. That arbitrage does not exist anymore. So why was there still this gap? And you learn really quickly it has to do with the banking system and it has to do with the regulatory environment. So they use rules and regulations to keep people out, number one. And then commodities all come down to finance. Okay. You can't mine unless you have enough capital to go rent the equipment, to pay for the licenses, and to scale up, because commodities is all about scale. You've got to have scale to make any money in commodities. With a couple $100,000, you're not going to be able to do it. It takes a lot of money, even for smaller, range products. And so you just learn really, really fast how that corresponding banking system works, and how everything funneling through London or funneling through New York, how those pipelines really end up controlling the dollars, which then controls the flow of commodities.
Now let's talk about the banking system and how this world is actually funded. So do these trading companies use cash, or is everything done on loans?
No, it's all credit. It's all based on credit lines with your bank. When you're dealing with, oil or natural gas, you're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars a month. Nobody has that in cash that they can use. So it's all about the banks. And if you go look at like mining companies and the shipping companies, and you go start looking at who owns what, you'll see very quickly it's the top banks that are the major shareholders in all the big players around the world.
So is that one of the reasons the system was permissioned, meaning a bank has the authority to give a particular trader or mining company permission to get a loan? Because if I don't have the cash and I have to borrow it, then I need to be approved for that loan, correct?
100%. That's how they keep people out. And that's how they control the entire system, is through the credit.
All right, let's fast forward for a second to today, and we are on the cusp of, hopefully this video will age well, we're on the cusp of a new era of money where it's quite possible that the debt world kind of goes away and we move towards these asset-backed currencies. So let's just hypothetically say for a second that thesis is correct. What do you think the global supply chain looks like if we don't have these loans anymore?
I think it'll look a lot fairer. I think that's a big component of it. Kind of backing up a little bit. That's really how I, really understood distributed ledger technology and how blockchain technology will change everything. It really started with Jimmy introducing me to this stuff. And for me, it just clicked immediately because, again, I'm so used to dealing with a corresponding banking system and how that could shut entire countries off, that just didn't have access. Where I've gone into, emerging markets and some of these where you have people who have product that they want to sell on the international market, and they're just unable to get it to the market because they cannot get the finance together, or they cannot connect their local currencies to the international market. So, it just clicked for me really, really quickly how countries being able to trade in their national or their domestic currency would open up. I mean, I think it opens up all kinds of new trade lanes, right? Where before you may have a farmer in, let's say Sierra Leone that wants to sell a product to Brazil, that would not happen directly before, right? It would end up going to London or New York to then, ship back down. And so I think what ends up happening is all kinds of new trade lanes open up. I think it could really jumpstart the global economy again. I think it could be a huge win for everybody globally.
Let me just sort of paraphrase to make sure I understand. So in the old world, everything was done in dollars. So if I needed to get out a loan, it had to be a dollar-based loan from a Western bank who could approve or not approve that. And so is your point that now these two countries who have nothing to do with the dollar or they're not a Western country, could just use something like XRP to do the trade directly, currency A, swap it through the exchange to currency B, and you kind of bypass the dollar system? Is that the point you're making?
Exactly. You can find the arbitrage and attack that arbitrage immediately and not have to go through middlemen and gatekeepers who are keeping you out of that market and essentially creating friction to take all the fees or take any of the profits that would be involved in that trade.
Do you not need loans anymore, though, in the example that you used?
You may still, but the product itself can act as collateral in the trade. You can, through some of these smart contracts and things that are developing out there. I know R3 is developing a lot of cool products out there for letters of credit and things like that, to where as a product flows, the value is changing hands as it's hitting certain points in the supply chain.
Right, because if I'm the buyer, I've got to have the money, right, at some point.
Correct.
And if that money then went into a smart contract escrow type function where it's being held, then I could go and maybe borrow money to mine or whatever I have to do using that smart contract as sort of proof, right, that the funds exist. And then I don't need to go to a bank necessarily.
Right. I mean, it's the same system we do now, right? But we use letters of credit for this. Through smart contracts, you eliminate the need for the bank and all their fees off of everything and their control over the system, where individuals can work together. You may still have funding groups and lending groups, that are providing liquidity into the system. That could be another way tokenization plays out here. But it will free up the actual producers of value to receive the value instead of the guys who are providing friction in the system, the bankers who have so far been the ones receiving all the value off of the miner and farmer, and the actual guys who are producing value off their work.
Got it. All right, let's talk about some of the specific commodities that are kind of interest right now and the ones we've been talking about lately. So what role do you think gold is going to play as an asset moving forward?
I think gold's going to go back to playing the role it's played for all of human history. Gold plays a very, if you start traveling around the world, you understand what gold, not only as far as money, but I mean, it goes all the way into religion, and culture, for a lot of these people. Gold goes just way beyond, and it's a universal thing too. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. Everybody views gold the same way as real hard asset. I think the logical thing is the fiat dollar plays out. We can already see with the printing, the value is going to continue to diminish until it's worthless. And then what is that thing that we can all go back to agreeing on? Well, I think it's the thing that we've always agreed on, was gold is what represents value.
Okay, so gold is going to have a more significant role as money, which I agree with that.
Right.
So do you think that the nations of the world that have gold in the ground are going to benefit from this change?
It depends. right? It depends on leadership. That's just how I look at everything. There's all kinds of opportunities that are going to open up because of this shift change that we're having. I think Ray Dalio has said this best. These are things that are new to us, but they've happened lots of times in history. They just haven't happened in our lifetime. And so, you go back to history and you see the guys who are early on in the change and accepting and adopting that change and moving forward with that new world, they're able to take a lot of the value. So like if we're talking about Africa or some of these emerging markets that have the resources, right? They have them in the ground. Which one of those leaders is going to step up and say, I see where the world's going. I'm going to move my country over there and step into that first, right? And kind of step out of that old way of doing it. What will happen for them? It will go, it will be so massive because what they don't have right now is capital investment, right? They don't have the capital inflows from around the world. But in my background in commodity trading, I know how much capital is pent up wanting to go get those resources, right? Whether we're talking about gold or lithium or cobalt for, the new battery, in green world that's trying to be developed out there. There's a huge demand for this stuff, but the big players around the world can't touch these countries. They can't touch that product. So they use brokers and agents, and it's dirty, and people are being paid off. You read the book World for Sale. You see how this all kind of got developed in that way because people had to have the resources, but because of the tangled banking web and the politics and the few people making a lot of money and the rest of the people making no money, the leader that really wants to help his people and just step boldly into this future is going to be the one that it will be an infinite amount of money flowing into those countries to develop those resources.
Do you think that the incumbents who have done very well in the legacy system would put pressure on leaders to not change?
Oh, for sure. We've seen that with with Ripple and what's going on, and what happened with the lawsuit. At this point, we've all seen what happened. We all know what happened. Mm-hmm. We know it's the legacy groups that create, that they don't create. They take all the value off of providing friction in the system, and how they will fight tooth and nail for that. That's how they feed themselves, and that's how they've lived. That's what they're used to. They don't want to accept this new world. We'll see that, whether it's in Asia, Africa, the United States, wherever. That's kind of humans, right? The people in power do not want to give it up. And that's why, again, I go back to leadership. This will take, real leadership to do uncomfortable things, to kind of move past that old world and move into the new world, which will happen no matter what. It's just, are you going to be on the forefront of that? Are you going to lead into that? And are you going to be remembered for that? Or are you going to be remembered like Gary Gensler and some of these other guys that you help back progress?
So sometimes when we talk about tokenization of assets, people are fixated on that being kind of a tokenized representation of money, like gold, for example, where the gold sits in a vault somewhere, but I'm not going to pay you for something with a gold bar. I use these digital asset tokens that represent that value. Right. However, the supply chain also has some real benefits for tokenization. Can you talk a little bit about something like cobalt and lithium, who probably aren't going to be used as money in the same way gold will be? What do you think tokenization means for those assets that have a role in industry?
So in commodity trading, people kind of get confused. People think, okay, I can see the price here and I can see the price there, or I see that it's here and somebody over here needs it. And, I can just go pick it up here and move it over there. Commodity trading has nothing to do with that. Everybody can see that. What commodity trading is all about is the paperwork from end to end. Can you connect all those dots via the paperwork? to make that trade happen, because there's all kinds of local rules, international rules. There's all kinds of shipping and logistics issues that you may have. There's tons of people involved in that. So it's really about connecting all the paperwork together to make that happen. So you can see, and you got tax authorities, you got all these kind of regulatory bodies. So you can see how tokenizing that trade and essentially tokenizing the contracts will create transparency and reduce friction and allow trade to develop at a much more rapid pace. Because, you know, what tends to, like, if we're talking specifically about Africa, we talk a lot about the smuggling issues, you know, people trying to get around around this system. But by putting everything on chain and creating that transparency, you're really not going to have ways out of it. And it will allow more participants into the system.
And for an asset that's like in a liquid or powder or some kind of form where it's not like a gold bar, how does the tokenization work? Do you have any sense of, like, do you put like a barcode on a barrel of stuff? Like, what do you see the supply chain being logistically in terms of tokenization?
I mean, when it comes to like liquid or you know, bulk cargoes, or you know, even if you're talking about, you know, like t-shirts and things that you could put a barcode on, they all have orders, purchase orders, and like I said, you know, letters of credit that will kind of define what the product is, what the volume is, and all that. So that's what could be bundled up into your smart contract, into your token that kind of moves down the supply chain, and it has that, you know, again, the whole description of what that thing is moves down the supply chain. The value just gets transferred as it moves down to the appropriate bodies.
So for people maybe who aren't familiar, would it be a fair analogy to just use like the UPS tracking, that my UPS box leaves wherever I order something online and it gets scanned a whole bunch of places, and Correct. I can sort of track its progress, and the whole box of all my stuff has one barcode on it? Would that kind of be how I could envision a tokenized supply chain?
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. You know, again, I think it just goes back to as that, you know, product, as a value flows, the value then gets distributed out to all the appropriate parties in real time as that's happening. There isn't these kind of like delays and different things that would kind of create, you know, this latency to where, you know, the product may have arrived and money's not moving for 60 days. You know, that kind of latency in the system will be eliminated. Everything's going to start happening in real time, which goes all the way back, you know, right? The ultimate goal is it all goes all the way back to the investor who's putting money into that to provide the liquidity. Okay. But they're watching their meter, right? You know, going up in real time as those products are coming out of the ground, getting on a truck, getting on a ship, going overseas, getting offloaded, right? They're watching their value click up or click down in real time, depending on what's going on.
So do you think that the supply chain will be more efficient and move more quickly?
100%. I think as you layer blockchain, and then eventually as we layer AI on top of that, that's what's going to, I mean, you will see things where product is, you know, arriving just in time, you know, where, a lot of friction, a lot of waste is taken out of the system. You know, everything is more efficient. The capital is more efficient, you know, and which will create what the whole world needs at this point, right? Look at the amount of debt that's out there in the world. What do we need? We need GDP growth to get us out of this. And I think blockchain and AI and these things will provide the efficiencies that's needed. And like I said, new trade lanes, things like that, where there's just new money out there.
So do you think that will help with prices? You know, we've had an inflation issue for a couple of years. Do you think that this efficiency will make things less expensive for the end consumer?
Yeah, because it'll make things more available. It'll again, you know, any arbitrage in the system, right, can be attacked immediately. You don't have all this friction in there where, you know, think about how global trade flows and all the different, you know, start and end points out there that are now all funneling through New York, or they're all funneling through London, or they're funneling through Hong Kong. for it to just get to where it needs to get to in real time, it changes everything. It's pretty exciting.
Now, if the incumbent or the legacy system has benefited from things like smuggling or other illicit type activities, and those would go away with the blockchain, what incentive do the current market participants have to move to this new system?
So I won't say that the current major players are involved in illicit activity. They're typically good at following the rules. They're just the ones creating the rules to keep other people out, right?
Okay.
And those, you know, as you know, we've built businesses in Africa, and as you kind of grow and you start getting traction, right, you'll see a new rule come in place that will, you're done, right? It'll kick you out of that market.
Like what kind of a rule? Just make an example.
Okay, so you may have rules in Africa that have, you know, to make, because everything is done with like licenses. You have to have a license to mine. You have to have a license to transport. You have to have a license to export, right? So it's all based on having these licenses. You know, and then you have to prove up those licenses when, you know, let's say you take a gold bar that you mined and smelted and, you know, got all the paperwork together and, you know, had all your quality reports done, you know, in Africa, get on a plane, bring that to Dubai to import it. It can all, you know, be, you know, I don't know how to put it, but it can all be taken away if they just say, okay, guess what? You can't use 1 kilo. You now need to have a minimum of 10 kilos. Well, okay, now I have to scale up. What do I have to go get? More mines, more miners to work with me? You know, they can just do all kinds of things to essentially take your license away from you, to where you can't participate in that market anymore.
Got it. So there's like a couple of loopholes sort of that make these licenses conditional. So if they wanted to rescind your license, that's not that hard.
Not hard at all. Not hard at all. And they can, you know, like I said, they can keep raising the bar on you, to where it makes it harder and harder for you to participate, and you know, gets it to a point where it's not even worth it anymore.
And do you envision that the blockchain will change this licensing side of the supply chain?
It can change the licensing side a lot, because, okay, when we're talking about Africa specifically, I mean, you're still talking about, like, you know, colorful papers with a stamp, you know, that you went and got from the minister, and you don't know what license is real, or if the guy you're working with, his license is a real thing. And you can go down to the minister of mines or whatever and say, hey, is this guy's real? And they paid off somebody, and you don't really know. And it makes it very, very difficult, which is why most Western companies are not in Africa, right? It's because of these issues that they can't touch those markets. You know, so by having everything on chain and verifiable, it will help create trust in a very trustless environment. You know, to know who the counterparties you're working with are all doing the things that they're supposed to be doing.
One thing you mentioned a couple minutes ago is the role that AI will play probably in the supply chain. So if we have kind of robots that are moving things logistically across the route that a good would take from A to B, and smart contracts kind of control the agreements and the release of funds, do you sort of see a fully automated supply chain at some point where very few humans are actually involved?
No, maybe, I mean, on the banking side, yeah, you need a lot less people. Maybe on the sourcing departments, you know, at big companies where they, you know, they have entire floors of people trying to find where that product is and negotiate deals. A lot of that becomes, you know, redundant, because AI will tell you, you know, here's what you need to be paying. Here's where the market is. Just go there. But as far as like deal makers and operational people, you know, that's not going anywhere. You know, you still need humans to actually move this stuff, you know, run the machines. And you still need deal makers out there going and opening up new markets and figuring out, you know, where the arbitrages are and how to attack them.
Okay. So you think there's still a industry for trading post tokenization and post AI even because of the human relationship side?
Yeah, for sure. Maybe it's just less people. You don't need as many traders because you'll have AI sitting next to you helping you figure out, okay, what's the market I want to get into? What area of the world is, where maybe they have a surplus that we should go and, start talking to them about, hey, we'll take some of that extra you have because we got a market over here that needs some of it. So you still have to have people going in and negotiating those deals. And like I said, as you go around the world, we're so used to here in the US, most people are behind a computer or maybe pick up the phone, but you start traveling. Everybody still wants to meet you, get to know you, trust you, have a handshake, and do face-to-face meetings.
So knowing that the world is changing because of our increased reliance on chips and batteries, compared to 20, 30 years ago, do you see there being a shift in which commodities are deemed kind of most valuable or most coveted moving forward?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're already seeing this play out with like lithium and cobalt and some of these, minerals and resources that are used to make batteries, and kind of make this green transition that seems to be where we're all going. Yeah, I think we're in the phase right now of, really developing where we should develop those resources and, those partnerships and, what countries are going to make their, foothold in that. I just personally think what we need to pay more attention to is the midstream of it, because, whether it's cobalt or lithium or one of these, products we're talking about, they have to be refined, right, to then be usable to produce a battery. And right now, again, we're talking about friction and flows of product and capital. Those products now, 90+% are all being refined in mainland China, which I just don't see as a viable long-term solution with what's going on in the world. So I think there's a huge opportunity in the midstream. And, sitting here in Texas, you understand how important the midstream is. Can
you explain what that means for people who might not be familiar with that label? Yeah.
So like, if we're talking about, oil and gas, the upstream, right, is the guys going in and putting in the rig, drilling down in the ground, producing the oil. Then they hand it off to the midstream. The midstream is really doing the refining or moving of the product all the way down to the downstream, which the downstream will end up using the product or shipping the product, things like that.
And so you think that if somebody wanted to have a really lucrative business idea, they should open a lithium refinery?
Yeah, I think Elon told us that's a license to print money, and he's exactly right. And then you go, why isn't everybody doing it? And it's really hard, right? Again, because of regulatory bodies. Where are you going to do this? To me, we've been thinking about this for a long time. It's made a lot of sense to start creating, supply chain funnels to maybe a coastal town in Africa and putting up like a lithium refining plant there, but there's a lot of other factors you have to take into place as far as security to then develop, attract that capital investment that's needed to spend billions of dollars to develop and run one of these. But again, it goes back to the leaders in Africa that see this opportunity and want to take advantage of that opportunity. If they're able to do it in a transparent and fair way and doing it in the right way, they'll attract the capital to do it. And then for their people, right, is the midstream jobs, those jobs are really good jobs. They're higher paying jobs. That's really how you start bringing your people up out of poverty and start developing a middle class, is with that kind of work. So they have a huge, huge opportunity in front of them.
So let's say hypothetically you were in a position where you were advising a leader of an African nation who had abundant natural resources and they were, used to the old way of doing things. How would you start your advisement of them so that they could venture down this new path, making different decisions than previous leaders have made?
I would advise them to start working with groups and structuring their deals kind of in this new way. They probably should start, again, what you look at, they have the resources, right? They could start partnering up with groups, providing those resources into the partnerships, letting those people market their stuff and bring kind of information flow back to them about what they need in the supply chain to attract that capital investment, to basically prove out these models. Once you start proving out those models, you will attract lots of capital. You can then use those new partners and that capital to develop a midstream, a refining capacity, things like that. And you just kind of do it step by step. But first, you have to prove to that international capital market that you are willing and able to do it in a way that will allow them to put money into the system and into your country. Because right now they can't. It's totally frozen to outside investment.
Now, do you think African leadership is distrustful of sort of Western people like us because of the banking system history of kind of exploiting the resources of places like Africa?
Some probably so. I mean, a lot of these guys live in London or Dubai or New York, and they're being taken care of. I mean, that's just that kind of how it works. Like we talked about, the incumbents have made a lot of money and they have a lot of control over the system, and it's not an easy thing to do, right? It's not an easy thing to push back against. And that's why, my suggestion wouldn't be doing everything at once, but finding groups that want to do it the right way and start promoting that as, because the natural trajectory of all this will end up taking over the market. This new way of doing it, I think as human beings, right, we all may not have the same amount of money. We all may not have the same access to everything. But as long as we feel that we're being treated fairly and the game is fair, we can all live with that. And I think bigger picture, no matter where you are in the world, you don't feel like this system is fair right now. And so providing transparency and just making that transparency happen, that will just start snowballing into the new world, which ends up being a lot fairer for everybody in that market.
I think we are on the cusp of a very exciting change to the world, the money system, and how goods are bought and sold. Kind of what's your outlook for the next 5 or 10 years? Do you think we're going to go through a rocky period, or do you think that good days are imminent?
No, I think we go through a rocky period first. Again, because the incumbents aren't going to let go of this, and because of the debt snowball that we have, it's really hard to overcome. Because think about it this way: all the deals that are out there right now, all these contracts that are out there right now, they're all done in dollars. Okay, everywhere around the world, all these contracts, and a lot of them are long-term contracts, and maybe 20-year agreements. So they all got wound up into this dollar system. So it's that unwinding effect that takes time. And again, getting that first group to do, a trade not in a dollar is slow to happen, but we're now seeing it happen, right? We just saw a $1 billion oil deal done in the digital yuan. We're seeing countries, and a lot of this goes way back. I mean, when I was working in Dubai a lot, we knew the Qataris and the Emiratis and the Saudis and these groups over there were already thinking about how do we do our trades using, a commodity-backed currency, and then now as, the technology's here, right? Now you're seeing these digital currencies pop up that you can do trades in, and will represent that. Now, that gets sort of to why and how, I invested in XRP was because as these digital currencies develop and CBDCs develop, I I don't see where the world then says, okay, we'll use the digital yuan or the digital real or, even the digital dollar, right? I mean, that may be a stepping stone, but I think what everybody's going to be looking for, again, because of fairness in trade, is a neutral bridge asset, to be able to do this in a direct, frictionless approach without having to go through these intermediaries.
You mentioned that some of these trade agreements or commodity agreements are long, like let's say a 10-year agreement. So
Right.
what happens if everybody else starts trading outside the dollar, but I've got this contract? Do you think a lot of those will get renegotiated, or are people going to be kind of stuck?
No, they'll get renegotiated, but they'll be at the tail end of it, right? You kind of the new agreements will just have to be done in the new way. And then as that momentum builds, once the old contract is obsolete, or there's some type of force majeure or something that happens in there, that the lawyers get around and figure out a new way to, hey, let's go ahead and restructure this thing so the products can keep moving. But everybody on both sides can get a good deal and keep it moving.
Because there's been speculation for a while now that the fiat dollar, as we know it, could change in terms of its value, if nothing else. So if I've got this deal in dollars that I don't want to get paid in dollars anymore, I might have a motivation to renegotiate that agreement.
Exactly. Yeah. So you may have a lawyer find some force majeure clause and say, we're stopping, we're not doing anything, nothing else is moving until this thing gets renegotiated. That happens all the time.
Well, awesome, Scott. It sounds like we got some cool things ahead of us in terms of the role of tokenization for the supply chain, not only to back money, but to have transparency around how goods are sold. So I'm excited to watch it unfold. Any final words of wisdom or foresight before we wrap up?
No, again, with this stuff, I just go back to leadership. What I think the whole world is looking for are the leaders to step up, recognize where this is going, and kind of take us into that future. Those leaders will pop up. It will happen. I'm just, excited to participate in it. And, our search is continually trying to find those people to work with, that recognize this new world and want to help their people. And we want to be there as kind of structural deal makers, helping them and using our skills to help that world develop.
Well said. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Molly. Appreciate it.